It's 34 days to the general elections. Thanks for joining us on Standpoint. I am Precious Amayu. Now, all is fair in love and war. That's according to the English writer and parliamentarian John Lilly. This saying aptly applies to Nigerian politics, where there are no friends or foes, and all is up for the taking. Now, once fertile ground for the People's Democratic Party, the South-South has become a swing region, following successive and successful victories secured by other political parties in some of the 6 states that make up the region. Now, states like Cross River, once dominated by the PDP, is now in the hands of the APC. Delta State, also once a stronghold of the PDP, is no longer so. Now, the current Deputy Senate President, Ovioma Agege, who is of the APC, is in the race to become the next governor of Delta State. Now, with the presidential election inching closer, political parties are working overtime in the region to secure the people's vote. With a population of 28 million people, and that's according to the latest figures from the National Bureau of Statistics, the South-South region is now open for taking for any of the political parties that put in the work. Joining me now via Zoom to discuss the battle for the South-South region ahead next year's election is Ife Duku. Also joining the discussion via Zoom is Dr. Abiola Oshodi. He's a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Directorate of Sustainable Development for Nigeria. He joins us from Canada. Good to have both of you.
Having me.
Thank you so much.
All right, let me begin with you, Mr. Duku. I'm sure you have seen the latest figures from INEC, where that's the PVC figures that have now been put at 93.4 million registered voters. When you look at the Northwest, it's 22 million now. Southwest now has 17.9 million. South-South, 14 million. North Central is put at 15 million. Northeast, 12.5. I think that should be 25 million. And Southeast is also over 10 million. What can you... when you look at all of these figures coming in from the INEC, what do you think this means for your party ahead the general election?
Yes, please. Now, the other thing quickly is about the figures from INEC. The South-South is standing at about 14 million or thereabout. That clearly is an increase, and it is not for any particular political party to predict what that means for it per se, but to say that it shows that the electorate in the region and indeed across the country understand that there has to be participation in the electoral process, and that is quite commendable.
All right, let me also get your reaction to these figures, Dr. Oshodi. I want to be sure we have Dr. Oshodi on the line. All right, so let me stay with you, Mr. Duku, because there are those who are wondering where the stronghold, because now the biggest word or one of the buzzwords you will hear as we head inch closer to the election is the idea of strongholds. And when you look at these figures coming from INEC around the several regions, what does APC consider a stronghold?
The APC traditionally has a strong foothold, let me say, in the northern part of the country. And that has been attributed to so many factors, including largely to the personality of President Muhammadu Buhari, who has always been said by analysts that he always had about 12 million votes or 15 million votes, as the case may be, in his kitty in every election. Now, the dynamics are changing quite fast. Our presidential candidate, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is known to be a major political strategist. That itself has impacted in several analyses of the forthcoming elections. The Southwest, as it is, has become an emerging stronghold of the APC because of the personality of our candidate. Indeed, he's spreading his tentacles beyond that region, well into the South-South and also into the Southeast, which some people never thought would be possible. When you look at Ebonyi, you look at Imo State. So just to say that the APC's traditional stronghold is expanding very fast, and it gives us a lot of comfort, but it also tells us that that should continue. That is why you see Asiwaju is everywhere, working, doing all that he needs to do, while some others prefer to remain on social media, throwing tantrums at him day in, day out. But that is not, what we are saying is that you have to work to earn the votes. And Asiwaju is doing that. And that means that the stronghold of the APC is expanding very fast. And we are comfortable with where we are, but we also know that the job is not done until it is finished.
I want to stay on two issues you raised. You talked about the fact that you're making inroads into the Southeast, and you also talked about the North and the Southwest being a stronghold for you. Let's start with the Southeast. How well do you think you're doing in the Southeast?
I do not have raw data to be able to give a precise answer to that. But you know that the governors of those states are of the APC stock, and they have a bounden duty and indeed an obligation to do whatever they can to convince the people, because elections are changing very fast across the terrain of the country. You need to convince the people by your works that my party has delivered. And if by the results we are seeing from Ebonyi State and indeed Imo State are anything to go by, then we can say that the party is performing well and the people will make that judgment call on election day. Our hope and prayer is that by their works, the people will be able to say that they have justified the mandate they gave to them about 4 years ago, to be able to vote for the APC in the Southeast, especially in those two states.
We seem to be having a network challenge there coming from you, Ifejuku. But I understand that Dr. Abiola Oshodi has now joined us. Let me bring you into the conversation, Dr. Oshodi. I was reading out the figures from INEC earlier, from the different number of registered voters from the different regions. And I just was asking what this means. How is the APC interpreting these figures?
Network challenge there. Yeah, in terms of the figures from INEC and the rates of PVC collections across the different regions, I don't think it's quite different from what we're expecting in terms of the figures that are given in different regions. The one that is a bit concerning, which also happened in 2019, is the rate of PVC collections, especially in the Southwest. And going by the figures, we expect, to do very well in a lot of the regions, Northwest, Northeast, North Central, South, and Southwest as well. Yeah, and, try our best, especially in the Southeast, to at least cost 25% in some of the states that we might not do well, and the ones under our control, make sure that we do very well and score majority of the votes. I think that's the way I personally interpret it. And don't forget that of all the presidential candidates or frontrunners, Principal has been the one that is very, very active, crossing the entire length of the country, trying to convince voters, holding town hall meetings, and engaging the voters. None of those presidential candidates, comes anywhere close to how he's been electrifying the the electoral environment and engaging voters, and making our political environment quite exciting and something to look forward to.
You mentioned several regions in the north as well to be part of your strongholds. Do you think that you would do better than the PDP presidential candidate in his own region?
I think Nigeria has gotten to a point where it doesn't really matter where you come from. What people want is good governance. Say, for example, the PDP presidential candidate comes from Adamawa State, and he was vice president for about 8 years. And there's no meaningful development in Adamawa as of today. When you look at all the metrics of development, be it the Human Developmental Index, the HDI, or what you call HDI, or even the IGR of Adamawa State. So a lot of the things happening in Adamawa State are attributed to his own, private enterprise. This is not how to govern a state. So Adamawa State has to look beyond article coming from Adamawa State and, embrace, a developer like Asiwaju that can actually bring development to that state, expand their IGR, focus on expanding all the HDI metrics, that will make sure that, the people experience the dividends of democracy and, set Adamawa on a high footing, as well as other states, from the northeast.
When you say that he was vice president for 8 years and there's no meaningful development in Adamawa State, wouldn't that be the responsibility of the governor of the state and not necessarily of the person who is vice president, irrespective of where he's from?
Well, if as a vice president, I think you should have a very good relationship with the governor coming from your state. And, if such had happened, a lot of developments could have been brought to Adamawa State, working with other elected officers, be the governor, be the senators or House of Representative members from that country. But that's not what we're witnessing. What we witnessed after that was lack of development. Then terrorism came up. Adamawa became one of the states of the hotbed of terrorism. And when you're talking about poverty in Nigeria, the North is also leading those states. You don't want that kind of a person as your president, if you come from that region, because if he didn't bring development in 8 years as vice president, it's also not going to bring development in another 8 years as president. So what becomes of those states, not just Adamawa, but the entire Northeast, which has been the hotbed of terrorism, for a couple of years now. And when you don't serve development, what people become angry and they take up arms against the state, which is what we have witnessed. So we want to, under the Asiwaju presidency, we want to witness development in those areas. We want to focus on the strength of the Northeast people, of Adamawa people, and minimize their weaknesses. Their weaknesses being that there's no resources. Their weaknesses being that there's no job. Their weaknesses being that development is far from them. We want to bring development to them. We want to, use their human given potentials to make them to be able to create the jobs that are non-existent and make them live life and live it fully as God commanded. That's what Asiwaju is bringing on the table. So they should join us and make this dream a reality.
And when you look at the major candidates, 2 of them are from the north. One of them is of the PDP, and the other is of the NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso. Where does that leave the APC in the north?
I think you should go back to 2019. Kwankwaso and Alhaji Atiku, they are of the same PDP stock. So it's PDP fighting against PDP. As far as I'm concerned, you might prefer to say NNPP versus PDP. And even Obi's Labour Party is still PDP. So PDP, as of 2019, were won, and they lost to APC of, President Muhammadu Buhari and Vice President Oshibajo. So in 2022, they've divided themselves into three, and hopefully we also help them complete the divide. Hopefully we get the G5 governors on our side. So it's going to be a moonslide victory. That's what we are praying for. So
I want to get sorry to just jump in, and apologies for interrupting. You mentioned something about the G5 governors. Are you saying that hopefully you get them on your side? Does that mean that conversation is ongoing with the G5 governors?
I believe conversation is ongoing. And at this stage, like I tell people, it doesn't even matter where the G5 governors goes, in as much as they don't remain in PDP. Let's say, for example, they adopt Peter Obi. It's still PDP factionalized. Let's say they adopt Alhaji Kwankwaso, it's still PDP factionalized. So the only way they can become politically relevant post-2023 and join the winning team is to join Asiwaju campaign train. And that way, it's a moonslide victory. Our victory will be assured, in all the G5 states, and along with our strength in other areas of the country.
So I want to go back, because this conversation is about the South-South, and we'll get there in just a moment, but we want to look at some of the regions before we then bring it back to the South-South, because you mentioned earlier about the Kwankwaso and Abubakar Atiku being from the same stock, which is PDP. What people will always say that, look, Southwest is already setting for Asiwaju because he's from the Southwest, and that Southwest is also predominantly APC. You don't also think that, look, because these two presidential candidates are from the North, it's going to be quite a bit difficult to make inroads from those areas? How popular is Asiwaju in the North?
I think Nigeria politics has gone beyond ethnic affiliation. So even though that's still a very big factor, Asiwaju, say for example, Southwest belongs to Asiwaju, not because Asiwaju is from the Southwest. Southwest people are very sophisticated. Asiwaju controls Southwest because of his track record, because of his investment in democracy, because of who he is. He sacrificed a lot. He stood with Chief MKO Abiola during June 12 annulment. He ruled Lagos State very well and continues to rule Lagos State through his proteges. And they are delivering the dividends of democracy to Lagos State. And don't forget that when he came in as Lagos State governor, Lagos State was experiencing very huge revenue challenges that could not meet the obligations of the, or the expectations of the people. And through his financial ingenuity, he instituted several reforms that culminated in the, exponential increase of the IGL that we see today, from about 600 million a month at the time. I think they are doing about 25 billion as at today. And we can see, the quantum development, that is, going on across Lagos State. I think recently they launched their light rail, from one part of Lagos to another, and a lot of other areas will be covered in a matter of time. These are the kind of expectations we have at the federal level. No region should be left, out. And we are supporting him from the Southwest, not because he's just from the Southwest, but because he has the capacity, he has the vision, he has the track record, he has the ability, and he understands the terrain very well. He's been part of the political process for many years. So he's coming on board with experience, just like President Biden of United States of America has come on board with lots of experience, garnered over the years, and he's doing wonders in the United States of America. And we cannot jettison experience at this stage of democratic, democratic rule, which Asiwaju will bring on board. So, these are the factors that other regions have to look at, not just because somebody is from their area, get Asiwaju elected and witness quantum development, which is what democracy should be about.
We're speaking with, I don't know if he's back on, we're speaking with the Delta State, who's a special advisor on election strategy to Delta State APC Governorship Campaign Council, Ife Duku, earlier. And he was saying that, look, even in the Southwest, that Asiwaju is also, probably going to do well as well, going to do well in that region. And that, look, because you have at least two states that are APC in that region. And so, I'm sorry, one state APC, then you have the PDP, you have ABGA. And so when you look at that, and then those who are APC, two of them are a bit shaky. So he's saying that possibly Asiwaju would do well. And when you look at the turnouts of people when he went to a state like Imo, he might do well in that region. What's your thought on that?
I think he'll do well in the Southeast, to be honest with you. Don't forget that Southeast traditionally vote for PDP, and I think they will still do. Don't mind the fact that Peter Obi is also from the Southeast. But I think, Southeast people are also very sophisticated people. They can be very, very calculative. So it would have been a different game, say, for example, if Peter Obi had come up under the PDP structure. So I don't see him dislodging some of the PDP states. And in the APC states, about two controlled by the APC, I expect those states to be delivered to Asiwaju. And in non-APC control states, we'll do our best to at least score 25% of the votes so that we can meet 25% requirements in some of those states, assuming that we cannot win them. But this is going to be total victory for Asiwaju come February 25th, 2023.
So there are 5 states in the Southeast. Imo and Ebonyi are controlled by APC. Then you have Enugu and Abia being controlled by PDP, and Anambra controlled by ABGA. Now, there are people who are saying, even in the states where you have APC, that generally for the presidential election, that people might vote for a Labour Party because that's his region, and that maybe during the governorship election, they will end up voting for APC and the party that controls that particular state. How do you react to that?
Well, it's a possibility, judging by sentiments, that one cannot discountenance, when it comes to elections. But I think overall, with the resilience of the governors we have in those 2 states, the hard work that our principal is doing, as well as the members of the Presidential Campaign Council and other party stakeholders, I think we should be able to, win the 2 states where we are controlling, and that's Anambra and Ebonyi. Those governors, they've done very well, so they understand the election dynamics in their states, so they should be able to mobilize their people to come and vote for Asiwaju during the presidential election. Don't forget that I think the senatorial and the House of Rep election also hold same day. So, we should have substantial good showing on those days in those states controlled by the APC. And even the non-APC control states, we should have the minimum of 25% from those areas.
I want to bring, I understand we have Ifeduku back now. I want to bring him into the conversation because we're just speaking on where you left off, which is the Southeast. And I want to ask you the same question I asked Dr. Oshodi, which is the fact that, look, some people are saying people are just going to vote largely and generally for Peter Obi during the presidential election in the Southeast because he's from that region. And that maybe during the other elections, the National Assembly, gubernatorial election, and State House of Assembly, they might end up voting for the party that controls their state. How do you react to that?
Look, you see, elections are about realities. If you run away from the realities, then you are likely to walk into a cul-de-sac on election day. The Peter Obi factor is a real factor. Those who support former Governor Peter Obi are passionate. That they will vote for him is a statement of fact. You see it every day on the streets of the country, especially in the Southeast. So if you are analyzing elections and you discountenance the impact Peter Obi will make in the East, then you are not a serious analyst. But the question that can easily be answered is, where is Peter Obi from politically? He came from the PDP. Whose votes is Peter Obi going to impact? It is largely the votes of the PDP. So APC is not under any major threat by the fact of Peter Obi being in the election in the Southeast. The Southeast will vote for Peter Obi, but that Southeast that will vote for Peter Obi is the traditional Southeast that was voting for the PDP. So as it is, the chances of the PDP in the Southeast is in inescapable danger. They cannot escape Peter Obi. Is going to excoriate, is going to take away all their votes. When I say all their votes, it may be hyperbole, but that is to say that Peter Obi is a strong factor and it is against PDP in the Southeast. So go to Imo State, go to Ebonyi State, whether that will happen, we do not believe so. The data that we look at do not show that he's going to have that impact in those states. The dynamics are not the same. That is to say, there has been a major change that, though gradual, from the PDP to APC over time in those states. And that is not going to be reversed overnight or on election day. So yes, Peter Obi will get votes, but it is the PDP's headache, not APC in the Southeast.
You don't think that he's going to take a bulk of your vote just because there is a clamor for Igbo presidency, especially when you look at from the PDP primaries all the way, there has been that clamor. At some point, there was a clamor for it to be microzones, for presidency to be microzones to that region. You don't think that because of that particular clamor, that a lot of people in that region and just residents of that region will say, because they feel it is their turn, that they are going to vote for someone from that region. It's perhaps one of the reasons, a lot of analysts will say, perhaps one of the reasons why the PDP is where it is today, because it did not listen to that clamor from the Southeast to microzone the presidency to that region. And that perhaps because of that, they are going to vote largely from someone from that region.
Okay, I'm not going to discountenance the impact of primordial sentiments in our elections. They are still there. That the Southeast is entitled or clamors for the presidency is a legitimate clamor, and there are so many reasons driving it. However, Peter Obi has presented himself not as an ethnic candidate, but a person who has something to offer the country. So Peter Obi is not even presenting himself as an ethnic candidate. And if the man who is contesting has not, in fact, he publicly said that if the reason you are voting for me is because I'm from Southeast, do not vote for me. And I think that message sinks. But again, as I said, that is not to say those sentiments that drive some voters, that we will not remove them completely from the table in analysis. But I do not think that people who are voting for Peter Obi are doing so only because he's from the Southeast. They believe he's competent, they believe he's honest, and the rest. So that is what those are some of the things his supporters hold on to. And we have to respect that. We don't say that they don't know what they are saying. They have points, they are making good points. But our position is that we have a candidate in Asiwaju whose credentials match side by side with any of the candidates, stand so tall that you can't even begin to compare. That is a statement of reality from our perspective. It is left for the people of this country, as we talk to them, to dispassionately look at these credentials and see whether they are able to come to the same conclusions as we have done. That the person who stands most eminently qualified in terms of experience, in terms of contributing to democracy, in terms of nurturing and sustaining this democracy, ensuring that the military went back to their barracks to play their constitutional role is Asiwaju, and nobody can impeach that reality. So whether they will vote for him, yes, Peter Obi will get votes. You see, to ignore that, to say that he will not get votes, even in Southeast, is to disrespect those who support him. The APC is not disrespecting anybody in this country. But what we are doing is to appeal to people to look at the issues beyond primordial sentiments and say, hopefully come to the same conclusion that we have come to, that Asiwaju is grounded, well qualified, prepared himself over time, and is now ready to take on the task of giving this country the leadership it deserves, from where President Muhammadu Buhari will stop and take us to the next level that we deserve.
All right, we're still speaking on the 2023 elections and the battle for regions. And in just a minute, we'll be focusing on the South-South. We've been going around different regions. But let's take a break now. When Political Standpoint returns, we'll talk more. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on Political Standpoints. You would agree that the dynamic of this particular election is different. 4 major political parties, 4 major presidential candidates, 2 from the north and 2 from the south, making every region a battleground. We're still with the election strategy, advisor on election strategy, I think he corrected that earlier, of the Delta State APC Governorship Campaign Council, Ifeduku. And also Dr. Abiola Oshodi, he's a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Directorate of Sustainable Development for Nigeria. Good to have both of you stay with us. But let me begin with you, Dr. Oshodi. So how well do you think the APC rather is going to do in the South-South? When you look at the history of previous elections, it's always been the PDP doing so well in that region. Just recently, the APC was able to flip Cross River State. It did flip at those states at some point, but those state is now back to being PDP. So how well, because of those kind of dynamics and the crisis now rocking the PDP, how well do you think that the APC is going to do in the South-South?
Thanks so much. Since the dynamics of 2023 elections are, moving quite fast at a furious pace, and a traditionally controlled PDP region like South-South, it's not an exception. Again, we can't discountenance the impact, of the G5 governors from the PDP in terms of determining who controls that region, South-South, in 2023 election. The impact of someone like Governor Wike, who is a very, very big factor, not just in the PDP, but in the outcome of the 2023 election. Because a lot of his people are also sharing his sentiments, not just fighting about himself, but fighting for the region that they've been cheated. So assuming that the PDP had, zoned the presidency to the South or Southeast, it would have been a totally different game. So in our candidate, Asiwaju, they see somebody that can truly liberate them, that can truly listen to them, that can truly address a lot of the challenges, that, the people from that region have been agitating and advocating for. So I see Asiwaju and the APC making a very good presence in the South-South come 2023 election based on those factors. Things are moving very, very fast. And they've remained, with PDP for the majority, 80 or 90% of the time that we've been in democracy. And it surprised me that even Governor Wike himself said that the 13% derivation fund that was due to that region was not paid in all the 16 years of PDP. And it's only the APC government in the last 8 years that has been able to not just make the payment, but also pay the backlog, through which a lot of developments are taking place in that part of the region. And these are the kind of things we want, to continue. And under the APC government of Asiwaju that will be taking over from President Muhammadu Buhari, I think these are the issues that, would largely determine, the South people coming out to support us, which is what I expect anyway. And the impact of the governors from that region will certainly be a huge factor in determining who they vote for.
But Dr. Oshodi, I'm staying with you. Rivers State is the only state controlled by PDP in the southwest, in the south-south, where they seem to be having challenges. Other states seem to be, when you look at Edo State, the Edo State governor is supporting the PDP presidential candidate. The Delta State governor himself is the vice presidential candidate. The Akwa Ibom State governor hasn't raised any issue against the presidential candidate. Neither has Bayelsa. So they still have about at least 4 states where all is well and good. Doesn't that mean, especially when you look at the fact that the vice presidential candidate is also from that region, doesn't that mean that to an extent they still have a hold on the south-south region?
For Delta State, the dynamics is a bit different, though. Remember that the governor is the vice presidential candidate of PDP, and there are a lot of local issues that has totally, driven a wedge between him and the electorate. So I don't think, he has that influence to retain, to get PDP back to power in Delta State. And the election machinery of, Senator Moagege and the political waves is creating lately, I think that cannot be discountenanced as well. So I think for Delta State, the political dynamics is certainly moving in that direction because, and for the other, states, things are moving very, very fast in that region. And it's kind of very, very difficult with the treatment meted out to Wike by the PDP for some of the governors to convince their people that it's PDP that they have to vote for. It's politically insulting. So it's a very, very big burden that the PDP is carrying. So I think that's where we're going to profit from, going into the 2023 national election, to be able to reach out to a lot of these electorates, make them understand why they need to support our own candidates so that a lot of the burning issues affecting that area can, be addressed constitutionally and, bring a good development and dividends of democracy to our South-South people, which they genuinely deserve anyway.
All right, let me bring Mr. Aduko into the conversation. He's from Delta State. I want you to react to some of the things that Dr. Oshodi has said in terms of the influence of the Delta State governor, who is also the PDP vice presidential candidate in that region, and then how strong your candidate is, the Deputy Senate President.
Okay, let me put it this way. I was born in this region. I grew up in this region, schooled in this region. I am somebody who can say that I am baptized by the waters of the South-South. I can tell you that our people views that thing you call betrayal of trust very strongly. Governor Ifeanyi Okowa conveyed a meeting of all Southern governors of PDP extraction, and they reached a resolution that the governorship, the presidency, after 8 years of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, should shift to the South. He betrayed not just the South-South, but the entire Southern Nigeria. He stabbed his colleagues of PDP at the back mortally. Let me tell you, they can say whatever they want to say, in the media. They can spend all the monies they want to spend in the media. It is all waste. The South is ready to punish Okowa because it reminds them of the character of Judas Iscariot, who betrayed the Lord Jesus Christ. By betraying the collective interests of the South and a resolution that he read, he projected himself to the people of the South, indeed the entire country, that is not a dependable person. He's not a person to be trusted with leadership. So let me tell you, Governor Wike's fight, yes, Governor Wike is in PDP. I speak to you as an APC member, but Governor Wike's concern is not a PDP concern. It's a South-South concern and it's a Southern Nigeria concern. Because of the position of arrogance they have taken, not to listen to his bare demands or request. If this is what you said, that the chairmanship should at least come to the South, if in any event that the presidential ticket went to the North, implement it. They said no. And they now
But Mr. Duku, sorry to jump in, but let me just ask you, because when you also, if you also remember the events that played out before the gubernatorial election in Edo State that saw the current governor leaving the APC for the PDP, that people will also say, look, that's also fresh in their memory and perhaps an issue that would also plague the PDP, if not in the APC, if not in Edo State, maybe in the region as well. And what we saw, I think it was it 2 weeks ago when the presidential candidate of the APC, Asiwaju, was in Benin. People were quite surprised about the large turnout of crowd for him, because a lot of people have said he might not even be campaigning in Edo State because of the sentiments that followed. And it now led others to say, look, probably that crowd was rented. So you are from the South and you have said that, look, you have drank of the water of the South. How popular is, and I'm not talking about how well people know him, I'm talking about his popularity level, the willingness of people to vote for Asiwaju in the South.
Let me tell you, Asiwaju has his own political credentials. He has presented to Nigerians. They are evaluating them on their merits. And I do not have any doubt that those credentials are untainted to the extent that nobody has been able to impeach the credibility of his credentials at any level, especially in the judiciary. His performance in Lagos is a testimony to good governance. Upon graduation from the university, I went to Lagos for the good life. Lagos is the melting pot for those people who aspire for the good life. There must be a reason for it. You can say that it predates Asiwaju. The important thing is that under Asiwaju, it did not collapse. And indeed, he maintained it, and it is sustained. What we talk nowadays is sustainable development, sustainable governance. Asiwaju has given that to Lagos. He's doing everything to extend it to other parts of the country. So Asiwaju's credentials are there. Nigerians, we call on them to look at those credentials dispassionately and vote for him. That is our call. I am talking about a modern-day Judas Iscariot.
Dr. Duku, sorry, Mr. Duku, I would advise that you also mind the language. You've said that before. I just want to ask that you mind the language of calling the vice presidential candidate of the PDP that using that kind of term to describe him. You can just say what you want to say without describing him that way. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I do not mean disrespect to him. I'm talking about his conduct of having stood to read the communique, adopted in and appended his signature to same, decided to act otherwise. He is not a fit and proper person. by the standard of the South-South to aspire to that office. And so the votes will tell. And let me come to this. On the question whether he will even get the votes in this Delta state, the jury is already out there. Our people are already making their choices. They are deciding. The turnouts at every ward, because the APC is conducting word-to-word campaigns. There are places for 42 years that they have never witnessed a political campaign in our history. Senator Ovioma Agege, our governorship candidate, has taken campaigns to them, and they have witnessed what it means to feel that a political party, and indeed its candidates, value them as electors in the electoral process.
And what does
So
that
we are
mean?
waiting.
What does that mean for his chances? Can he win that election in Delta State? And will his votes also trickle, or will his votes also, would that also be something that the presidential candidate, Asiwaju, also benefits from?
That is without question. I believe that when Asiwaju came to Delta State to campaign at the Warri City Stadium, he must have been shocked, indeed amazed at what he saw, because the crowd was unprecedented. They didn't know that such a crowd could come out for him. And I believe that is what advised him to make a second trip to Delta State to consolidate on the gains of what he witnessed. So anybody who is saying that Delta State is PDP, PDP is Delta State, as they used to say, their mouths are not shaking. They know that, look, in this state, yesterday, I can begin to name for you, over 20 prominent members of the PDP resigned from the PDP and joined. As at this morning, as I'm here now, I'm looking at my phone, I have seen that the count today is about 6. Before the end of the day, it should get to at least another 20. These are people that the Okowa PDP, not the real PDP, the Okowa PDP, treated as nobodies. We don't accept that from anybody. We don't serve political demigods in Delta State.
All right, Mr. Juku.
And those who are resigning, yes, please. Those
I just want to give
Dr.
I have a minute more, and I just want to give it to Dr. Oshodi to say something before we wrap. Dr. Oshodi, when you look at, I know you have talked so much about the chances of Asiwaju in the 2023 election, but how many states, when you look at the different figures coming from different states, PVCs, your stronghold, how different states that the APC control, how many states can you categorically say that the Asiwaju will get the 25%?
I think Asiwaju's chances in the election, it's extremely bright across the length and breadth of the country. So for the majority of the state, at least the 21 states currently controlled by the APC, I expect a substantial turnout and substantial results coming from those states. Then we have to look at the states of the G5 governors. And hopefully they adopt Asiwaju officially, which is what we're expecting. And that makes it about 26 out of 36. And again, amongst the youth that are quite angry with the establishment and who have chosen to adopt Peter Obi, I think their voice will be heard in a couple of the remaining 10 states, maybe 2, 3, 4. Then, the rest might be won by Vice President Atiku and Kwakwanso.
But I'm afraid we do have to leave it there. I'm out of time, but thank you both for your time. The Special Advisor on Election Strategy, Delta State APC Governorship Campaign Council, Ifiduko, and also Dr. Abiola Oshodi, who is a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Directorate of Sustainable Development for Nigeria. Thank you both for talking to us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
That's Political Standpoints. Don't forget, you can watch again by 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. I am Precious Amayo. Thanks for watching. The news is up next.